Hi, this is Brett from Six Figure Side Income. Today, let's take a walk down memory lane as I share my journey graduating from college, more than $50,000 in debt, and why looking back, I'm weirdly grateful for this hard financial lesson. The intent in sharing my story is to offer hope and some practical advice if you find yourself struggling with debt and looking for a solution. According to a recent report from CNBC, there's $1.73 trillion in student loan debt in the United States right now. I know there's plenty of people barely able to scrape by due to the overhead of their student loan payments. To be clear, I know what it's like to be in this deep, all-consuming kind of debt that controls your life and limits your options. I know what it's like when pretty much your entire paycheck goes toward covering student loans, credit cards, and rent. I also know what it's like when a flat tire turns into an economic crisis because you weren't expecting to have to pay that extra $200 that month. I also know what it's like to strategically time mailing my bills so that a check doesn't get cashed until my paycheck is cleared later that week. And I also know what it's like to search for spare change so that you can buy a burrito and a cup of water at a Taco Bell for $1.20 because it's literally the only food you can afford. I know what it's like to avoid answering phone calls because you know it's a creditor calling. Frankly, being in debt sucks. Being stuck in this sort of debt cycle is a real grind, and you start to realize firsthand how debt really does become a form of slavery. You need to keep going to work because you need to maintain the loan payments, you've got to eat, and keep a roof over your head. You have no choice in the matter. And all the while, you know that with one missed paycheck, it means everything is going to quickly fall off the rails. To me, living this way felt even more demoralizing since I was gainfully employed with a full-time job. It was like, didn't I do everything that I was supposed to do already? I went to college, I got decent grades, I graduated. Now I was supposed to get a job and at least have a comfortable salary even if my life was going to be boring. I remember one time talking to my mom on the phone after a day of work about my finances. My mom immediately suggested that I cut back on expenses to make things easier. I bet this is probably the type of financial advice most of you would get if you asked a parent for it too. Just cut back your expenses. But you see, that was the problem. I didn't have any expenses to cut back on. I needed a car, I needed an insurance, and I needed gas so that I could drive to work and make money. I wasn't spending money on coffee at Starbucks. I drank the free stuff that they gave you at work. It was
terrible.
I was sleeping on a couch I pulled out of a dumpster in a one-bedroom apartment in Anaheim, California for $500 a month. This was the cheapest place I could find. If I cut back my lifestyle any further, I'd be out in the street right now. So as you can imagine, you might feel the same way too. It's really frustrating to feel like you've done everything right, you followed the plan, but there's nothing you can do to get ahead. Have you felt like this before? Feeling like you're stuck? Feeling like you don't have any options to make more money? Thankfully, through time, reading, and self-reflection, I realized that I needed to make a change and started the slow process of getting my finances straight and learning how to make money. This was not a natural transition for me, but I was eventually able to find things that worked for me. With that being said, here are 3 lessons I'm grateful to have learned about getting into debt early in life. These are some of the same lessons you should take seriously if you want to look at and evaluate your finances. The faster you can master these lessons in your own life, I promise you things are going to start to shift. And the good news is, if you learn these things right now, you're actually going to be ahead of the game compared to your peers. The reality is, the average person never learns these lessons. Lesson number 1, be very careful about taking on bad debt in the future. Through this experience, I learned to be very careful about taking on bad debt in the future. I understood the demoralizing effect paying off debt can have when you have to do it for years at a time. Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, defines bad debt as buying things that aren't assets with credit. Things that are not assets are things that basically just take money out of your pocket every month. Think a truck payment, a student loan payment, a vacation that you put on a credit card that you got to keep paying for. Obviously, I don't want you to be too hard on yourself about the debt you've already taken on to attend college. That time period of your life is over. You can't change what happened. As an aside, I think it's pretty disgusting the level of debt these universities are able to put an 18-year-old kid into as students. It's sick to have a system that lets you go literally 6 figures into debt right after graduating high school without a complete understanding of what you're doing. But I digress. Fortunately, you can use this knowledge about debt to change future decisions. Decisions like, do you really want to take on another $20,000 to $50,000 of more student loan debt to get an advanced degree? Unless you're going into a medical field, this is like throwing good money after bad in most situations. Do you really want to put an island vacation on a high credit card? Is this really in your best interest to buy a new car with a loan? You can't change the past, but you can learn the financial lesson so you're in a better spot 5 years from now. Lesson number 2, I learned the importance of a budget. You've got to figure out where your money is going and what is left over after expenses. This process sounds a lot like making a budget, you're right, but here's the thing. Writing down where your money comes from and how it's spent shouldn't actually take you that long. Most of you can do this in less than an hour. Here's what to do right now. Literally, do it right now. Write down how much money you expect to make each month from your job or jobs. Got it? Next, write down a list of each thing you spend money on each month. Common monthly expenses are rent, cell phones, internet access, electricity, food, gas, student loan payments. Got it added up? Good. Here's the last step. Look at what you're paying out each month and look at how much money you're making. Then subtract your income from expenses. Then take a look at the number. Is there anything left? If you're like most people, you'll be left with almost nothing, and you might even be in the negative. Going through this process will get you clear on where you're at right now financially. Are you building wealth, or are you like most people and just treading in place? You're maybe working really hard, but you're not making any progress. At this point, sure, take a look at your expenses and see if there's anything major you can cut out or reduce. Could you get a lower cost cell phone package? Do you have a monthly subscription for anything you don't use that could be cut, like a gym membership? Are you paying a monthly fee to store junk somewhere? Could you reduce your rent by getting a roommate? Find anything significant that you can remove from the expenses side of the list, especially if you don't use it. Now here's the thing, after you've figured out what you can cut, move on. There's no benefit to going overboard with this budgeting thing. This goes against conventional wisdom about personal finance, but I don't think you should fixate on removing all the little things that actually bring you joy. This includes things like $10 a month Netflix subscriptions, gym memberships, or cutting a few $4 lattes each week to minimize cost. You see, even if you're fighting debt, you don't want to make life miserable for yourself. If these little things bring you joy, just keep them. The reality is none of these things really matter when it comes to building long-term wealth anyways. Think about it this way for a moment. As an example, I like to go to Starbucks. I go there maybe 3 times a week and I buy the $3 coffee. I like the venti dark roast with cream and sugar personally, nothing fancy. Round this up, let's just say it's $10 per week with a tip or $520 per year. By the way, I think I spend more than that on Starbucks. Most personal finance gurus out there would recommend cutting out this expense because you'll have an extra $520 at the end of the year to invest and save. Here's the problem with this sort of advice. First, I like going to Starbucks. I like going there to work sometimes, and it gets me into a different environment. I also like the coffee. It brings me joy and is frankly a whole lot cheaper than anything else I could be doing, like going out to eat, for example. Let's think about this logically too. What am I practically supposed to do with $520 extra after an entire year of cutting out something that I enjoy. This is gonna have no measurable impact on improving my life. It's not enough to make a difference in investing. I certainly can't go on a vacation with $520. This is just me, but I give you permission to continue enjoying the little things even if you're working your way out of debt. I think you'll feel better and you're gonna be happier going down this path too. With that being said, let's move on to the final lesson I'm grateful to have learned from being in debt. Lesson number 3, I learned that I had to expand my means. Put another way, I had to learn how to make more money. And let me tell you, making money is a skill you can learn. My advice is to start educating yourself on how money is actually made. Study it, read books, listen to podcasts, watch YouTube videos on the subject, just like this one. Start opening your eyes to the millions of ways people make money every day. Some places I recommend learning how to make money would include this channel, The Sweaty Startup, and Starter Story. Find a business idea that makes sense to you, has a low startup cost, and see if you can build a business out of it. Set a goal of bringing in, say, an extra $500 a month as a way to expand your means. In my opinion, the most practical way for most people to make more money is to start some type of a service business. Think about simple businesses you could start. Could you start a lawn mowing service, a window washing business, car detailing, local moving company, garage door repair service? If you have some type of a professional skill like this, you might offer freelancing services like filing taxes. You could offer accounting services, website design. You could do freelance writing. I believe if you can figure out how to make $500 a month on your own, money that's not from a paycheck, you're gonna be able to figure out how to make $1,000, $10,000, or even more in the future. This is when the game changes and your financial life improves rapidly. Let me tell you, when I started making an extra $2,000, $3,000 per month from my side business, I started paying down debt much more quickly than I would have been able to do saving. Bottom line, I don't want you to get stuck in the budget step like so many other folks trying to get out of debt seem to do. If you have a lot of debt and a low paying job, just like I did coming out of college, it's just gonna take a really, really long time to pay down those student loans that way. These lessons on debt were difficult to learn at the time, but looking back, I really am grateful to have learned them through this process. Let me ask you a question. Do you feel overwhelmed by your debt right now? I hope this video gives you hope and an understanding that there are specific things you can do to improve your situation. And I want to know too, what is your plan to get out of debt? Let me know in the comments. I read and respond to each of these. This is a subject I'm very passionate about, if you can't tell. If you got something out of this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. This helps me spread this message of personal freedom through finance. Until next time, keep building.